Hello and welcome to another video review, and today we're reviewing arguably the biggest game to release in 2018 thus far, and that is Far Cry 5. Without anything else going on, we're going to dive into Far Cry 5. Now I am going to tell you guys ahead of time, this whole review is going to have some spoilers in it. At this point, the game's been out for over a month, so I feel like it's appropriate and okay for me to talk about spoilers of the game, because at this point, it's been out, a lot of you have already played through the game, and I think it's only beneficial that I speak to some of the spoilers involving the story in this game, because they're important to what happens and my overall review of this game. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into Far Cry 5.
Oh, Marshal. When we do this, we do it my way. Quietly. Calmly. You got it?
Fine.
Hudson on the door. Watch our backs. Don't let any of these people get in. Rookie, on me. And you, just try not to do anything stupid.
Relax, Sheriff. You're about to get your name in the paper. You'll be fine.
Something is coming. You can feel it, can you? We are creeping toward the edge. And there will be a reckoning. That is why we started the project. Because we know what happens next. They will come. They will try to take from us, take our guns, take our freedom, take our faith. We will not let them.
Sheriff, come on.
Hold on, Marshal.
We will not let their greed, or their immorality, or their depravity hurt us anymore.
Sheriff.
There will be no more suffering.
Joseph C. I have a warrant issued for your arrest on the suspicion of kidnapping with the intent to harm. Now, I want you to step forward and keep your hands where I can see them.
There they are, the locusts in our garden. See, they've come for me. They've come to take me away from you. They've come to destroy all that we've built.
Hold on, do not touch that service weapon! Hold on and don't stand down! Stand down! Everyone calm down!
We knew this moment would come. We've prepared for it. Go. Go. God will not let them take me. I saw when the Lamb opened the first seal, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts say, "Come and see."
Step forward.
And I saw. And behold, it was a white horse. And hell followed with him.
Rookie, cuff this son of a bitch.
Now, I'm a huge Far Cry fan, I'm going to be honest. Far Cry 3 is my favorite Far Cry of all time. It still is after playing Far Cry 5. I don't think we can top Far Cry 3. I wasn't a huge fan of Far Cry 4. Primal was kind of its own thing. It was okay, but it just kind of felt like a rehash, only you were playing in prehistoric times. This game does feel new, it does feel different. They finally got to a point where they've made some interesting changes to the Far Cry formula that I feel like it actually works. However, Far Cry 5 does have a disappointing story, and that's the biggest downfall of Far Cry 5, because I went in expecting a great, huge story, and what I got was rather disappointing. Now, unlike a lot of other reviews, I'm not going to sit here and argue, that I'm upset that Far Cry 5 doesn't really click with current political climates the way that some reviewers and some news outlets and stuff gave this game a lower review score because of. I'm not going to mention names or anything like that. You guys can find those reviews on your own time. That's not why I'm disappointed with the story of Far Cry 5. You have to go back and look and remember that Far Cry 5 is a game that's been in development a lot longer than what's currently going on in our political climate in the United States. So to expect those kind of things and story beats in this game, a little bit unrealistic if we're being honest. But I get why people were a little upset and I understand it, but that's not why I'm disappointed in the story of Far Cry 5. I'm disappointed in the story of Far Cry 5 because other than the fantastic intro and then ending, which I really enjoyed, I feel like the story throughout the rest of the game is not really that good. That's the problem. They made a Far Cry game where, you know, instead of having one centralized villain, they tried to create 4 of them in this cult family, and it doesn't work at the level that you would expect it to. So, obviously, the story is as follows in Far Cry 5. You are an unnamed marshal, and you and a couple of marshals are heading to the fictional county of Hope County, Montana. This game's set in Montana. You are there to arrest Joseph Seed, who is this religious cult leader of the Eden's Gate cult. And he's being taken into custody because there's been evidence that he's been kidnapping people. I mean, spoiler alert, he's doing a lot of nasty shit. But you are sent there to arrest this guy and take him back. And the intro, the first half hour of this game, which I will play a little bit of here, so you guys kind of get a taste of it. In fact, I believe that's how the video review is going to begin. So you guys get kind of a taste of what the story of this game could have been. It's fantastic. It's an incredible opening for this game, and I really thought, oh, holy shit, we're going to actually do it. We're going to make a Far Cry game with a villain that tops the villain from Far Cry 3, Vaas, and unfortunately, they don't top that. But the intro is incredible, and it really got me in the mood for Far Cry 5 to see how they do this game and how this story unfolds. Unfortunately, nothing really captures the spectacle of those early moments in this game until the very end, and we'll get to that later. But the rest of the game is obviously shit goes bad. You arrest this guy, his cult fanatics actually throw themselves into the helicopter blades as you're trying to take him away because they believe that this is God's plan, that this is the end times, and this guy is basically calling upon the end times and everything. That whole sequence is really good and really incredible. I really enjoyed that part of the game, and I thought, oh, they're really going to give you a really dark, crazy Far Cry 5 story. They don't really hit those notes, and that's the disappointing part of the game. After the initial couple, I'd say maybe 2 hours and doing the tutorial little island area, the game opens up and you're pretty much free at your whim to go wherever you want. And there's 3 different regions. There's the drug region, which is run by Faith Seed. There is the northern region, which is run, I believe, by Jacob Seed, who he is a very strong-willed person that hates weak people. And then, and I'm forget his name because there's too many J's in this game for different characters' names. But then there is also the guy to the west, and maybe the southern region or the western region of this county. And he is all about the power of yes. And again, the problem with this game is they start going crazy into this religious cult stuff, and then they kind of just walk away from it. I wonder if the developers got a little scared, honestly, when they were making this game, of we can't go too far into this or people are going to get upset. There's a really, really cool sequence where you watch almost like a late Saturday night, early morning, Sunday morning infomercial about the one brother who's all about the power of yes, and it's really fascinating and interesting. Unfortunately, those are the early moments in Far Cry, and they don't really hit those same notes until the very end of the game. So the thing that's a little ridiculous to me about this is when I started the game, the first thing I did, drug region, beeline to the drug region, because I wanted to see how crazy the game would get. Now, when you get to the drug region that's run by Faith Seed, she's all about this hallucinogenic drug, and it's interesting. It's fascinating. They do some really, really cool stuff with hallucinations in this game that are cool. But the problem I have with it is, while they do that in the drug region, and that's interesting and fun, when you go up to the north and deal with Jacob Seed's area, it's just the same thing again. And that's a little disappointing, because that guy's all about post-traumatic stress and those kind of things, and I feel like they just do more hallucinations up in that region as well. The only region that doesn't really deal with hallucinations or mind-altering drugs is the other guy's region over on the southern side of this county. And his region is interesting as well, but Far Cry 5, the important thing to note about this game isn't the story, and that's unfortunate, because that's what I went into this game for, was a massive story, and I feel it falls short, because you're just, at the end of the day, starting to do repetitive missions over and over again, and it kind of is the same Far Cry thing that we've always done. It doesn't really change that formula up too much. Go over to this region, liberate this outpost, help this person, help this guy steal their plane back. Or, since you're in Montana, there's probably at least 3 times in this game where I help someone steal their big ass truck back. So, stuff like that, and it's expected, but it doesn't do anything new story-wise, and that's disappointing, because I was expecting something just a little bit stronger here in the story side of things, and it didn't really get there. The way Far Cry 5 shines, though, is in the exploration of the world that they've created here. Montana is a great setting for Far Cry, and I enjoyed all of my time in Hope County, Montana. There's so many crazy things to do. There's a ton of side missions. This game is jam-packed with shit to do, more so than previous Far Cry games. And I think that the gunplay is as tight as it's ever been, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the game a lot. The controls are great, the setting is fantastic, and if there's one other thing I'll complain about with Far Cry 5, it is the fact that the character you play as doesn't have a voice. Your protagonist doesn't have a voice, because they wanted to create a game where you can create your own character and switch the clothing on their character and stuff. The problem with doing this in Far Cry 5 is, unless you're playing co-op, you personally, like me playing the game, I don't ever see my character, so who really gives a shit what they're wearing? And that was a disappointing aspect of this game for me, because Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, some of the best parts of those stories are how your protagonist interacts with other characters. And when you strip that out of the game, you have an empty, shallow character who doesn't even speak, and you just kind of go along the game, and it's just assumed you're going to help this person and do that. But because you're never actually speaking to that person on the other side here, it just kind of takes you out of the experience more than the previous games did. You know, one of the best things about Far Cry 3 for me was, as I was playing through that game, the character you played as in that game was just a college student who was on a trip in the Bahamas or whatever island that they were on in that game. I don't actually remember the name of the island. But what I liked about that story was it showed that guy go from being a weak college student to a hardened survivalist. And I really enjoyed that aspect of that game. It's lost here in Far Cry 5 because you're a nameless protagonist. I do think it's awesome for the first time in a Far Cry game you can play as a female character. That's awesome. Give these people a voice, though. Like, that takes me so far out of this experience that it was a disappointing aspect. I don't know why they decided to go this way, other than if you're making a generic character, they thought, hey, they can't have a voice. They should have let you have that voice in this game. Disappointing. But again, I digress. And these complaints aren't to sit here and say Far Cry 5 is a bad game. I actually really enjoyed Far Cry 5 a lot, but I enjoyed it for different reasons. I enjoyed the world. There's a ton of crazy shit in this world. They make some really solid, interesting choices with the progression system in Far Cry 5 that's different than previous progression systems. So you're no longer required to hunt to make better gear and equipment so you can hold more things or store more, guns or ammo or anything like that. Far Cry 5 works on a perk system. So let's say the more headshot kills you get, you're going to earn some perks. Let's say that my favorite, in fact, this is my favorite part of this game, was finding what's called prepper stashes. These are little hideouts that you have to kind of figure a puzzle out about. And sometimes they revolve around opening something or finding a key to open something. Sometimes they involve platforming. I really love these prepper stashes. I thought they were awesome. And your reward at the end is you get some perk points and some money to buy shit in the game. I like this. In fact, out of everything I did in Far Cry 5, the prepper stashes were my honest favorite parts of the game, because I thought each one of them was unique and different and very well designed. But you get perk points, and you use these perk points to upgrade yourself and unlock different perks in the game and everything. It's an interesting decision that I think at the end of the day works for Far Cry, because it's better than the previous, hey, go hunt 4 of this animal and skin it to make a bigger wallet, you know, or something like that. The other thing I will note about Far Cry 5 that I really enjoyed, and this is a very smart decision for a video game in 2018. No longer are you climbing towers, the infamous, hey, I'm just climbing this tower to shoot off a beacon to see this part of this world. Far Cry 5 does it a little bit differently. Far Cry 5 has you find different maps and different outposts. When you pick up the map, it actually unlocks a bunch of things in that region on your map so you can see it, and you can even sell that map back once you've found it to a shop or something to get some money back on that map. But you're no longer climbing towers. In fact, there's a great joke at the very beginning of the game, because one of the first things you have to do in the training area is climb a tower, and even the guy that's helping you out says, hey man, I'm not going to make you climb a bunch of towers. That would be crazy. I thought that was a good joke in the game, making fun of that. This is a smart decision on Far Cry's part, and I really, really enjoyed that they changed this up. The last thing I want to talk about before we get into spoilers here is the 2 other parts of this game. There is a cooperative mode, and then there is the arcade mode. Now, the cooperative mode is fine. It works the same as it did in Far Cry 4, and I think Primal had it, but I didn't try co-op in Primal. I did in 4. The disappointing part of co-op here is the host is the only person that progresses through the story. The person joining the game is just there to help out, but they can regain, you know, experience points and perk points and all that when they leave the game, but they don't regain any cooperative story progress. That's a little bit disappointing. You know, I feel like in 2018 you should be able to just play through this game's entire story cooperatively and progress, both of you, but I get why they did it. I hope this is something we can fix for the next Far Cry game, but it is what it is. The other thing I want to talk about that's actually a real highlight of this game is the arcade mode. Now, in this arcade mode, one of the greatest things that they do here is they allow you to create your own user-generated maps, and you can fight against bots here, and you can dick with all different settings, including God mode, and you can turn your jumping distance on extremely high, have no fall damage, those kind of things. But people have created their own maps, and you can run through, and they might pick specific targets you're supposed to kill, or anything like that. I've had a blast playing this arcade mode. In fact, my favorite thing I've seen in arcade mode is somebody made the facility level from GoldenEye, and it's a 1-for-1 remake of that level with this engine, and it works really well. It's actually a lot of fun to play. I've played through that level a couple times because I liked it so much. So that is an awesome mode in this game. There are also multiplayer options. I didn't really dive into those. I do plan on doing that at some point. I think there's an achievement tied to it, so I'm going to have to at some point anyways, because I actually plan on getting all the achievements in this game. The arcade mode, awesome addition to Far Cry 5, and I really think that that's a great part of this package. Now, we're going to have to talk about spoilers here, and then I will give this game a letter grade. So these are going to be the major spoilers for this game, and that is I want to talk about the end of this game. So once you take down the 3 other generals, so to speak, of this cult, you have to take down the leader. And what follows is a very interesting story choice for Far Cry 5. I personally was a fan of the end of this game because I felt that it made good on what the story began as, but I understand why some people are disappointed in the end of this game. Now, it is important to note that there are actually multiple ways you can end this game. For me personally, I'm going on the ending that I chose. However, I do know how the other ending is. So at the end of the game, you make it back to where the game began, and you are ready to take down Joseph Seed and this whole entire cult. And you have a conversation where he basically tells you, look, I'm giving you one chance. You can lay down your guns and you can just leave. You can go. We can forget everything that's happened here. Or you can stay here, but you're going to regret it. He has lined up everybody you've pretty much met throughout the entire game, all your friends and comrades, and he's going to kill them, but he will let them go if you choose to leave peacefully. I chose the ending where you don't leave peacefully, which is actually what I've read, the good ending. So what happens here is you get free, you have another big boss battle with this guy, you take him down, and you're getting ready to take him into custody when an entire nuke goes off. They just unleash a nuke, and at this point he says, look, I told you this is the end. This is the end times. This is what was going to happen. It's been predicted. So you get in a car and you're driving along. You're trying to drive to this bunker to get underground, and once you get there, the car kind of flips over and you black out. When you wake up, you and Joseph Seed are in this bunker, and the guy that helped you at the beginning of the game is dead because he killed him, and you basically have a conversation where he says, look, I told you the end times are here. It's over, but we're going to rebuild again. Even though you've killed everyone in my family, you're going to help me restart that family. And that's the end of the game. I thought that this ending, this post-apocalyptic ending for this game, was perfect and set out what I wanted the game to end as from where it began. And I know a lot of people are like, it's crazy. I don't like the end of this game because it's not a happy ending. But I enjoyed it for what it was because it set out and kind of made good on the story promise from the beginning of the game. The problem with ending a Far Cry game like this is, what do you do for Far Cry 6? If all these games kind of take place in the same universe, what is Far Cry 6? Now honestly, I'm being a little nitpicky there because they can ignore the events of Far Cry 5 when they make another one. Like, even though these events take place in the same world, so to speak, they're never connected. So, that being said, at the end of everything, Far Cry 5 is a very enjoyable experience. I think it's definitely worth your time and your money. I don't think it's perfect. It's better than Far Cry 4 and Primal, I'll give it that, but it doesn't top Far Cry 3 for me. I'm going to go ahead and give Far Cry 5 a B. That is my rating for Far Cry 5. I think it's a worthwhile adventure. I think it's worth your time. It's a lengthy game for sure, but at the end of the day, I think some of the story beats are disappointing, and putting that aside, I think if you're going into the game for story alone, you're going to walk away a little disappointed. But if you're going into that game coming off of previous Far Cry games and you just want a giant open world to explore and have fun in, and kind of just mute the story a little bit while you're playing it, especially if you're playing in co-op or something, I think that's a perfect way to play Far Cry 5. So, B for Far Cry 5. I think it's one of the better games that's come out in 2018 thus far. It's definitely the biggest one that's come out thus far, and I think it's worth your time. It is important to note here, I played this game on the Xbox One X. This game runs at native 4K, and it looks incredible visually. Really, really solid stuff. Obviously, my videos aren't 4K, so you're seeing it in 1080p, but trust me when I tell you, this is a very good-looking game. So, anyways, guys, that's my video review for Far Cry 5. I hope you enjoyed this video review. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.